Sir, my name is Kirtana and I am a humanities student in IIT Madras. So my question is, you've mentioned about Devdasi tradition as a sacred or cultic prostitution, similar to the one used to slander and malign pagan temples in Europe.
Right.
So how exactly should we look at this practice without being blindsided or being partial?
So there is this recently diabolically well-made movie that came out. It's called Sham Singh Roy. That is the textbook colonial presentation of Devdasi culture. I have had the opportunity to speak with people who come from the Devdasi lineage as part of my interactions. The good fortune of what has happened to me since 2016 is that my scope of engagement has become wider. I'm able to meet a lot of people. I have the opportunity to learn from a lot of people. And therefore, that constantly gives me ammunition whenever I need to talk. So, they've been very clear that it is a particular practice which they were not pushed into. So much so that they have a grievance that Bharatanatyam has been taken away from them. That is perhaps a grievance that needs to be addressed. I won't get into who did what in terms of organizations or individuals. I leave it to better informed people to comment on those specifics. But the injustice that has happened to them is not that they were pushed into or they became Devdasis, but they were not being given credit for the arts that they ultimately were responsible for keeping up. Okay? Certain Chennai-based institutions should have been in their hands. Let's leave it at that. Okay? 3, I am asking myself, how is it that the template of the evangelist doesn't change whether it's Greece, Rome or Bharat? He seems to be employing the same script. He seems to be employing the very same script. And the reason that you're not able to look at it or understand it is because your vision is limited to Bharat and therefore you don't have a compare and contrast exercise to perform. He's been doing this across the place. That's why in the first book what I have done is that along with each chapter I've shown certain photos which are actually historic in nature to see how the very first colonized civilization is the European civilization that suffered at the hands of the early Christians. And I'm saying, who are you to come and call us defeated? You have lost everything. Your culture doesn't exist. Whatever you think is your culture was created in a parliament in perhaps 3 centuries before or 3 centuries after whoever was called Christ. So with all that, you really don't have the moral authority or even, let's say, the standing to come and comment on this particular civilization which has held on to its roots, good, bad and ugly, let's say everywhere, and that is the case. So my limited answer to that is, I am not in a position to comment on the independent merits and demerits of the Devdasi culture. I'm being very honest about that. I cannot claim to have knowledge on that particular specific subject. But this much I'm clear about, that its distorted representation has a very clear white crucified hand in it. Okay? And that is something that I'm happy to debate on, because the material on that is clear. Because the material on the merits and demerits of that particular culture goes before their entry. I am not an expert on that, but the consequences of their entry are clear to see.